Hey, welcome back. Or if you're here for the first time, thank you. I'm humbled that you're listening. This is Rabbit Culture of Narcissist Ninjas. Check us out on Facebook, please, where we have a recovery group and page where we discuss different images and information that can help you in your journey to recovering from narcissistic abuse. Today's topic is going to be cults and how they relate to narcissism. So, my first experience or exposure to culthood, I guess, was when I was 15 years old. I was walking around the mall by myself, and this was in a rural community in Eastern Canada where, believe me, nothing happened. So, number one, I was bored. And number two, I was seriously traumatized at that age from various things that I had already experienced growing up. So I was probably considered a troubled teen. So I don't know if this lady, had observed me or knew just by looking. Sometimes I think people can look at me and see the kinds of things I've been through, which is absurd, but in my mind. And anyway, she gave me the book that you see here in the corner, and it had a bright, fascinating cover on it. And I was an avid reader at that time. I didn't like science fiction, but she kind of spun it so that it was nonfiction, so I could grapple with it, right? And then the lady was extremely friendly and said, "Hey, I want to keep in touch with you. And here's my phone number." Of course, back then, the phone number came in on a little piece of paper written down, right? There was no cell phones and stuff. So I took the book home and started reading it. And I never did get past chapter 5 because I didn't connect with it. Thank goodness. Like the writer, Ron Hubbard, who was the creator of Scientology, was very interesting. He was able to spin things to try to get people interested. And this, I'll put up one of his quotes actually that I always remembered. And it said, "The goal of life can be seen as infinite survival." Now that kind of screamed out at me as a teen because I was troubled and I was trying to survive in the midst of everything. But I couldn't get past chapter 5 at the most. And he discussed things like there was no death. You were just going to tone zero. I mean, there were just things in it that I just did not connect with. So I'm grateful that I didn't connect with anything. That's for certain. So I didn't call the lady back. I guess something inside of me did know that something was off, and and sometimes during my life I did have good instincts, and in others I totally did not read my instincts correctly. So you have a picture here of recently, in the past few months, COVID's done a lot of things for us, right? Giving us all kinds of time. So anyway, I'm not far from one of the major centers of Scientology. So I took a ride over one day and took some of these pictures. Now, I was working on a blog post about Scientology, and my idea was to go up and introduce myself to some of the characters as I watched them come out of the building, right? So I was over by the flagship, which is the main building. And as you see here, I'm about, less than 10 feet away. And so I crossed the light with them. I saw them coming out of the building and going, all dressed alike, all with the exact same facial expression. To me, they appeared to be very robotic looking. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do what that lady did. I'll be real friendly, right? So I go up and I asked them how their day was going and if they knew of any good courses that were going on. And they literally blankly stared at me. It was the creepiest moment, I swear, that I felt. I'm sure it's one of it was like this group. It wasn't just one person, it was the whole little group. They were all fairly young. I would say they were 20s, mid-20s, clean cut kids. Looked me dead in the eye, every one of them. No smile, no courtesy, hello. Mostly on the street, anywhere, in any city, even if you don't know someone, if someone comes to you, oftentimes, I guess maybe not New York, I don't know, a bigger city, maybe not, but, there'd be some kind of pleasantry, right? If someone was friendly and said hello to you, they may not stop and talk, of course, but there'd be some kind of communication, and I got the death stare. So I knew that, okay, I'm not going to mess with this. Like, my plan was to go in the building and see what they would do. But I said, nah, let's not go that far. It's only my little blog post. It's not worth it. So that was my foray into trying to just have a communication with a group from Scientology very recently. But it's just an indication of how people in these cults, and you can best and believe that Scientology is a cult, even though it is labeled a spiritual retreat, right? Or a religion of sorts for tax purposes. But the leader himself has been known to be extremely violent if things don't go his way, if anyone questions him, if anyone goes against the grain, and they do such bizarre methods of punishing members of the group if they decide, hey, they want to leave, for instance. I mean, there's been numerous documentaries done about it, especially the past few years. There's been different people that come out, tried to break away from the group, and, had to really, really deprogram themselves, and they had to go through a lot to get out. And, when I look back at my own experience of meeting someone from Scientology, how, charming they were to me as a young girl, and how much they, were so communicative and so charming, right? But yet, when I met the younger members on the street recently as an adult, they don't have those qualities. So it looks to me that they set themselves up in this charming persona to basically recruit members, right? And when I looked at these young people I met on the street, I wondered how many of them were recruited as a very young person, or how many were like born into it, right? And raised in it. It was very interesting. And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask them if I got a conversation with them. My first question was going to be, were you born, was your family a member of Scientology, or did you choose it? But I didn't get to do that. There's been all kinds of controversy over here in Clearwater, Florida, where their huge division of Scientology is. There's lawsuits that have been going on about the land. There's all kinds of arguments. I will put some links below so you can see kind of what's going on. It's kind of interesting. There is a man that used to be a member of the he was a member of the Scientology group, and he released himself, and now he's trying to be very political and to try to go back and fight against the group. And it can get real interesting. He has his own YouTube channel, and it's very interesting to kind of witness it. I'll see if I can find one of his recordings as well. A common trait for all these cult groups and cult leaders is the charm at first, right? The power, the charm, and the preying on vulnerable people and oftentimes kids, right? Get them while they're young, right? And then they can start the control early and start the manipulation tactics. And every leader that you read about, that you come up against, every one of them seems to go about things the exact same way. They put on the charm, they look for vulnerabilities, boom, they grab people into their fray, right? This is a picture of Epstein's island. It was a building on Epstein's island, and I can't even look at it. I'm sorry, I got distracted because looking into that gives me such creeps. Oh my God. Behind it, it's right on the edge. I was looking at the map of his island, right? And of course, if you don't know about who Jeffrey Epstein is, for some reason you don't follow the news or whatever, you can look him up. He was a prolific child molester who ended up going to prison and then dying in prison. But he had his own island. He was had all kinds of money, multi-millionaire, billionaire probably. And the map of the island, right at the end of the island was this, whatever this is. I mean, what is it? It's a building, yes, but it's so creepy, right? And there's been talk that there were rituals in that building. And there were rumors as well that even children were probably killed in there. And given that the ocean is right behind the building, it would not be a far stretch, right, to think that there was a lot of negative stuff going on there. And who knows? I mean, who knows the connection to missing kids? So many people and missing people. Like, I mean, who knows? They would bring young girls to the island and engage them in sexual behavior and so on. And of course, there's a huge conspiracy about it, and there's I'm sure still investigations going on about that crap. And of course, this is Lori Vallows and Chad Daybell's End of the World tour, I guess. Wow. If you can see the similarities are just so cunning that what makes me wonder is because they're so blatantly the same, okay, they use religion and the charm to manipulate people and to get them to join their groups. And then they're into all kinds of sexual deviance. And of course, in the case of Vallow and Daybell, child murder, just like Epstein. But they're all so similar. Like, that's why I don't understand adults that get wrapped up. I can understand the manipulation of children, because when I think of myself as a teen, I was like not all there, you know, and you don't have all the information you need to make sound decisions. But for grown-ups who get involved with this stuff, I just don't get it. And I believe, and I'm going to try to do a separate video about Lori Vallow soon, but I believe her biggest draw and her biggest manipulation was her sexuality. There hasn't been a lot of talk about that, but she seems to have this stronghold over the men in her life. And she must like lay it down there for them, and, you know, it totally controls their minds. And she uses that as a manipulation tactic. There always seems to be some kind of sex or, and always money and sex is always tied up to these things. And power and dominance, of course, is the number one tactic. But, you know, as an adult, I don't know. It's usually people that have been traumatized and have not dealt with their trauma, and they are looking for something. They're so empty inside, they have to make a connection with something. And we all, I mean, want a connection. I know I struggle with making connections, but I'm not joining a damn end of the world cult. I'm sorry. Lordy have mercy. Now this one, I'm not sure if money and sex was involved. I'm not sure what this is about. I'm sorry. Let's have a look. I mean, it can be funny if it wasn't so serious, you know. I try to find the humor in this stuff because it's so depressing. And that's why I did try to make a little bit of a lighter flair here. I'm not going really deep into cults and so on, because it's when you read about it, man, and you get into it, it is extremely depressing. And when you know the victims, that how much they have suffered and often lost their lives for the sake of a cult, you know, in the name of a cult, in the name of a leader of a cult, it's very, very disheartening and discouraging and depressing. So the main thing is to know that cults can't help us heal. They cannot help us. This is a political journey over here with this Q. The Q is the latest cult. And there are people that will fight to their dying day and say they're not in a cult. And with this Q thing that's going on with the politics, people, I mean, when I look at the arguments on the internet about the Q members versus, the normal people. There are no normal people in the world, but Q people are in a cult like any other cult. Now, they're not as organized and as simple-minded. Well, they're simple-minded, but I guess singular-minded in terms of their goals. Like, they can be different kinds and so on. They're not as collective as some cults, but it is a cult, and they have far out political beliefs, and they're just not thinking straight. And again, people are looking, and especially this one came up during the pandemic. And I believe this was a result of people's stress and mental frailties and just unrest, political and economic unrest, and just years of something that's been brewing, and they never got treated and never got help for it. Now, I've talked to a couple of Q members online and tried to have conversations with them. And even when you're as peaceful approaching as you can be, they appear to still be very combative, which leads me to think that it's just people who are deeply troubled and have been for so long, and now they feel they have this thing to cling to, right? But believe me, if you're clinging to that, it's sad. It's sad for anyone who's in any kind of a cult. So I briefly summarize these. They came from a book that I'm reading right now, and if I was to I could do a whole video just on what I'm learning from this book, but I'm trying to keep it as brief as possible. But I'm going to link below where I found the book. It's from a YouTube channel called Profiling Evil that I really, really like. And he's amazing at gathering data and information. And he wrote this book on a cult called the Zion Society cult that I had never heard about before. And it's fascinating. I'm going through the details now. It's called Deceived. But again, it has all those points. It has religion, money, sex, every single one of them work with the same patternings. So again, what needs to be brought out into the public is the information that is all the same patterning. So once everyone becomes more aware of that, they can understand how cults are created more, and they can definitely avoid getting caught up in them. As you go down the list of all these traits that were a part of the Zion societies cult, you can see that almost every single one, if not every single one, has been a description of every single cult that I have outlined here tonight.